It's Anna here, and just before we get started with this episode, I am a trustee of RET, the Royal Highland Education Trust, and they are having another one of their amazing gala dinners at Ingliston. I really just wanted to make you aware. Hopefully you might be keen to take a table, buy a ticket, sponsor, donate a raffle prize, or get involved in whatever way you can. So for tickets, go to www.ret.org. If you think that you can contribute in another way, again, go to the RET website and click on the Contact Us page to get in touch. Or if it's easier, you can get in touch with me through the OnFARM connections and I will pass on the information. So that is on Twitter and Instagram at @on_farm UK. So we'd love to hear from you, however you might be able to contribute. But RET is a wonderful charity teaching children all about food farming in the countryside. So it's something that is certainly dear to my heart, and I'm sure to many of our listeners as well. Welcome to On Farm. This is the first episode going out in 2024. Scene and Heard and myself have got a long association with RSABI and, in fact, with Carol McLaren, who is their chief executive. And Carol is a very busy lady, which is why it's taken us quite a long time to manage to have a chat with her about her role at RSABI since she was appointed. I think January is perhaps a very pertinent time for this episode to go out. I think we often feel that things are quite tough in January. The weather is miserable, finances are often low. Sometimes we just don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. And it's really good to hear from Carol and about the various ways in which RSABI are helping people with all types of challenges into 2024 and beyond. So sit back, find somewhere cosy and enjoy the conversation with Carol.
Hello, my name's Carol McLaren and I'm Chief Executive of RSABI.
Can you tell me a little bit about how things started at RSABI? What drew you to the job and how did it all kick off?
I had been fortunate to be able to work with RSABI as a volunteer for a couple of years, and particularly over the COVID period, helped them with the launch of the Keep Talking campaign. And at that time, the idea was very much, we knew farmers would actually in general be okay at the start of COVID because it was lambing time, it was sowing time, they'd be busy getting on with spring work. But we knew that once they came out of that, they might be struggling. The usual auction markets, summer agricultural shows wouldn't be happening. So we knew that at that point, perhaps it would be more challenging. They wouldn't be socialising as much as usual. So the idea was just to remind everyone, I think we kicked it off around about what would have been Fife show time and ran the campaign right through to the end of the Royal Highland Show. And the idea was, reach out to someone, connect with someone that you maybe haven't seen for a while, pick up the phone, send them a text, whatever, just connect up with someone. And, share how you're feeling, share what you're up to and help each other that way. So that was the idea. And I loved it. I absolutely loved working with the team. Obviously, I knew RSABI well from my, my other roles in the industry, but I got to know them even better then, got to know Nina well, the whole team. And I just loved what they were doing. And when the role was advertised, I just thought, crikey, I love that job. Just be so proud to do that job. So I went for it and I was interviewed and, thankfully they kindly offered me the role.
It'd be great to hear just kind of that first maybe 6 months, how you felt and what you were doing and what it was all like.
I think even when I went for the interview, something that came over speaking to the team as part of that process was that they really wanted people to know more about what services RSABI offers. So yes, people maybe had heard of the charity, but did they know exactly what we offer? Another thing that the team were really keen to do was to, they felt when we're at events that perhaps if we had a stand that people might not come and see us because they'd be worried that we'd be asking how they were and how they really were, or maybe we'd be asking them to shaking a bucket or whatever. So we wanted to really address that. And we had a great opportunity with them after COVID, the first Scot Sheep, which was up at Teeling at Finlarg and was an absolutely fantastic event. So we were quite strategic at that. And what we did was we engaged with a Perthshire barber, David Leggett's barber actually, who's called the Kilted Barber. And we asked him to work with us for the day. And basically he did a trimathon at the event, so trimming people's hair all day. And that attracted lots of attention, lots of fun. And it just, it was positioning us as friendly. Yes, we're confidential and professional, but actually we're a really friendly bunch as well. And while it had a really light-hearted sort of theatre type style, event experience, it was also a very serious message about looking after yourself, coming out after lambing. We know, it's a really tough time for people. They work really long hours, lack of sleep, stress, and they can forget about looking after themselves. I think we had all sorts of hair lying on the ground. We had ear hair, we had eyebrows, you can imagine, sort of start of June after lambing, wild and woolly. So that it was just, and then by people coming to see us and taking part in that, it was just a chance to hear about the other things that we do and have a good think about how they are and perhaps we could help them in other ways as well.
I think that's a genius idea, because effectively you were engaging with people but removing any kind of tiny kind of fear of stigma that they might have had, or fear of as you say, being asked a question that was too intrusive, or being seen to perhaps need help that they might not want to admit to. And I love the connection between taking physical care of yourself and getting a wee haircut, and then sowing the seed there to make sure that people are really taking care of their own mental health at the same time, and just checking in on themselves as well as checking in on each other, which the Keep Talking campaign was all about.
Yeah, and we've kind of further developed that over the past year with the sort of move towards the Health Hut initiative. So at the shows this summer, we were out and about with our nurse, Irene Scott, who's fabulous. And she's from a farming background as well, which does really help. She understands the industry and the people. Yeah. And so what we were doing at the start of the summer, the Royal Highland Show, was taking blood pressures. And that was really interesting. We actually had a queue on the first day. We thought we might struggle to persuade people to come to the stand, but we actually had a queue and people were really interested. We know that some farmers went away from the show and phoned their GPs the next day. And actually, we know of one farmer who was seen on the same day and was able to share his results and was onto medication that day and follow up, treatment as well. So typically, across the board, over the summer, since we've run up to this point, since we've run the Health Hut, we've taken about 500 blood pressures, and about a third of farmers have been found to be worryingly, high, or should seek further professional support to help them. So that's really interesting. Another thing that really surprised me, not knowing enough about it, was the number of young people with high blood pressures. So the monster drinks, Red Bull, monster drinks and things, the effect that has on young people and their blood pressures really jumps out. And there was a lot of surprised faces at the Highland Show when people came up thinking, oh, I'll be fine. And actually, no, because you've had so much Red Bull over the past 24 hours, your blood pressure is way up.
The connection between lifestyle, I suppose, and often, farming is a very physical profession, and therefore you assume that everybody is completely physically fit, but we probably all have a few bad habits thrown in there as well. What connection has that had to your fundraising efforts as well? Because obviously RSABI has got these two things that must feed into each other, the fundraising and then being able to help people with those funds. So how does that sort of circle all work?
I think we're incredibly lucky, and that really struck me in my first few months with the charity, and it has resonated throughout the last 2 years, in that the Scottish farming community are so supportive of the charity. And we are 126 years old, so it's been around for a long time, and we still offer, the same services in many ways, in that practical, financial and emotional support, which is what we offer. But, we have grown and developed. We're a modern, I think, a very vibrant charity as well now. But yeah, people are so kind. They are so kind, whether you're a young farmer climbing a mountain or running the New York Marathon, doing a cycle. We had the young farmers cycled from Aviemore to Bigger Show over 3 days, including two on a tandem.
Oh my goodness.
Miraculously, which must have been agony by day 3, but they made it. So I think there were 16 young farmers in total from different clubs, the A to B cycle. We've had Emma Gray, a young lady who sadly lost her dad to suicide a few years ago. It would have been his 50th birthday this year, and she did a skydive for us in his memory, and again has raised thousands of pounds. And then we have people doing tractor runs. There's, carol services, all so many different activities to help raise funds for us. And of course, also helping to raise awareness of the services that we offer. I mean, one of our biggest challenges that we need to tackle is that people who need us very often hesitate to reach out to us. We have a free phone number. It's really easy to remember: 0808 1234 555. It's completely free. It's 24 hours a day. That's new in the past couple of years. And it won't show up in your phone bill. Challenge for us is getting people not to hesitate. Very often people will phone us and say, I wish I'd picked up the phone 3 months ago. I got so close to phoning you and I just didn't. And 3 months down the track, things can be so much more difficult, for us to help them get back on track. So that's the one thing we would say: please don't hesitate to phone. Whatever the problem is, we can help make it better. And if we can't ourselves, then we'll find someone that can. We work with so many other organisations and fantastic charities who specialise in different areas. So a huge part of what the welfare team do is say, well, we know exactly who to go to help you with this problem, whatever it is. So awareness raising is just so important. We've also introduced a web chat function as well, which is quite exciting.
That's very modern for the farming sector. I can't wait to hear more about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we knew that obviously, so many young people have phones, but so few of them actually speak into those phones. They're using them all the time for all different purposes, yes. But do they actually pick up the phone and use it in the conventional way? So the web chat was introduced with young people in mind, so that you could just go on, be anonymous and just, tap your question in. It's not a bot, it's a live person always that's monitoring that web chat 24 hours a day. But what we found actually is that people of all ages are now using that as an entry point to our services and things. So that's good. It's good for young people, but good for older people as well.
What's really struck me about what you were saying is still that, we and you will never get to an end point, I don't suppose, but the journey that you want to take RSABI on in terms of making sure that everybody understands what services are available and what help they can get if they need it. And you touched on practical, financial and emotional support. So I wonder if you might be, obviously we're not going to name any names at all, but I wonder if you might be able to give me just some examples of the types of things that you're able to help with in those areas, just so that people can think, oh, well, actually, that could be beneficial, or I think my neighbour could benefit from getting in touch. Just again, to really make sure that everybody can understand what's available from RSABI.
Gosh, it's so broad, and the team are amazing. I should really emphasize that. That is the biggest joy of my job. When I wake up every morning, I just think, oh my goodness, I have such a good team. Everyone looking out for each other and trying to do the very best job that they can. But typically when they answer that phone call on the helpline, it could be anything. It could be a retired farm worker who's got into financial difficulty, whose fridge is broken. Could be something like that. Or someone who didn't realise that they're entitled to disability allowance, disability payments and things. Very often farmers don't know about all these things that you are entitled to. It could be someone having a full-blown panic attack. The team will deal with that. We've had farmers in the last few weeks, with panic attacks, anxiety. Young people with social anxiety is a real problem. And on the back of COVID, that hasn't helped at all, and we've been really working closely with the Young Farmers Association, which is a fantastic movement to try and get people back into the young farmers. They have their membership during COVID, but they've now built that right back up again. It's such a good organisation for social and education activities as well. We could have someone with real mental health problems who's needing counselling, and we offer counselling free of charge. If you go to your GP just now, you might have to wait up to a year to get counselling because there's so much demand, but we work with a team of private counsellors. It's all different people that you can actually choose from as a client of RSABI. You gel with a particular counsellor. So you might want someone with a farming knowledge and background. You might want someone who's nothing to do with the industry, a completely fresh pair of ears. And that counselling, it can be organised really quickly within a week or 10 days if it's urgent.
Wow.
And then you've got your 10 sessions free of charge, completely free. And we tend to find by about session 5 or 6, there's a dramatic improvement for people. So the counselling is so important. Demand for that has trebled over the past year. One example, I guess, that I would give, which really touched me in the past year, and there are many, but I was at the Highland Show, and I was standing with the team at our little stand beside the Young Farmers Centre. And a couple were sort of standing looking over, and I went over to speak to them. And they said, and they named a member of the welfare team here. And I thought, well, she's just there. You clearly don't know what she looks like, but you know her name. So I went and got the case officer involved. And what had happened is that the farmer had been, I think he was 4th or 5th generation farmer, and he'd been handed, he was taking over the farm from his father, who was still alive. And it was really struggling, the farm, really struggling financially. And he really didn't know what to do. He couldn't make it work financially. He didn't want to let the family down. He felt really responsible. He didn't want to let his immediate family down. And he felt he was in, I think, a narrowing tunnel. He just felt he had no options. Thankfully, he did pick up the phone to us. He wasn't in a good way. And what we did was we did a farm review for him. And what we gave him was choices, options. He felt he had no options. He'd run out of options. But actually, the team were able to say, no, you do. Some of them are not palatable, but you do have options. I know in his case, the best option was actually to sell the farm. And that's really, really tough.
Yeah,
but that was the best option for him. And so the team walked him through that entire process over a couple of years, actually. They had been working with him. And he got quite emotional when he was talking about this. And so I we were walking into a quiet room together, and he just took my arm and he said, Carol, RSABI has saved my life. And it was just,
wow.
I will never, ever forget that moment. And, you just think it wasn't okay. It's absolutely not ideal for him to have to sell the farm, but it was, it was the best option for them as a family. And now they're in a good place. And he was coming back to say, look, thank you. And this is where we are now. And, we're in a new phase of our journey. And just thank you all so much.
There are too many farmers out there who think, oh, somebody else is in a worse situation than me, so I can't possibly, pick up the phone. I don't really need it. Other people might feel as though, well, this is something I ought to solve myself, therefore I'm not going to pick up the phone. But actually, what harm can it do to pick up the phone and have a 20-minute conversation in complete confidentiality? Nobody will ever know other than the person at the other end.
Absolutely. And if they don't feel like quite picking up the phone to us, then please just speak to someone, the difference that can make. And we're about to, launch the Keep Talking campaign for this year. And we know that even a small amount of kindness can make a massive difference to someone's trajectory. If they're on a real, downhill slope, a small amount of kindness, just taking the time and listening. During our mental health first aid training, we teach people how to have a supportive, non-judgmental conversation. And it's difficult to listen. It's difficult to allow silence, because silence is a little bit awkward. But actually, during that period of silence, the person is very often thinking and processing, and you need to give them that gap and not fill it with your stuff and just let, the silence run. And they look away from you. That's a real signal they're thinking. And then they look directly back at you, and then they're going to speak again. And it's just allowing people, to have that space and giving them your time. And it doesn't cost anything to give someone your time, but actually it could make a difference. And literally it could save a life. As you say, you'll never know that you have. And one thing I would say, and it's something we'll be doing as part of the Keep Talking campaign, is encouraging people not to shy away from words like suicide. Now, that's a really difficult word for a lot of people. And in our industry, sadly, we're still losing too many people of all ages. And we know, and one of the myths I think people have is they think if they use that word, they somehow might plant a seed of thought of suicide in someone's head, Whereas all the research and all the teams that we're working with in the different expert organisations like SAMH and others know that if you have the confidence to raise that with them, you may well save a life. You will certainly not make anything worse. You will probably make things better. So it is, it is taking us into a new wave in terms of mental health as an industry, I think, to learn these things and literally that little bit of kindness. Because in actual fact, 1 in 20 of us can be having suicidal thoughts of suicide at any one time. 1 in 15 of us over the courses of our lives will attempt to take our lives, make a serious attempt to take our lives. So this is something very common, but there's a lot of hope and a lot of things that we can do when someone is in that space. And for example, people will go up and down usually, when they're having thoughts of suicide. And if people have a safety plan in place when they're kind of at a more up phase in their up and down that we go through if we are having thoughts of suicide, if you have your safety plan and if you start to feel you're going in a downward trajectory, you know who you're going to call and you know where you're going to take yourself and how you're going to keep yourself safe. And the people that are in your safety plan know that you could call them and things. The difference that could make is massive. That, along with being a lot more open about using words like suicide. If you are concerned, really concerned, have the confidence to say, are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you safe with yourself? Just and giving people the door to walk through into starting that conversation with you if they really are in a bad place.
Yeah. And I think also if you flip it, I did a psychology degree many, many years ago, but one of the things I clearly remember was about asking for help. And if you flip it round, we often think if we ask somebody for help, that we're being a burden or an inconvenience on them. And those thoughts often prevent us from asking the question. But I clearly remember the evidence from studies that show that actually that the opposite is true. People like being asked for help. It makes them feel good, particularly if they're able to offer that help. It makes them feel good because they have helped you. And actually, as the person asking, you become even more liked by that person who you've asked that question of. And that really struck me. And I've remembered it ever since. If I need an SOS from another school mum to pick up my child, I think, oh goodness, but surely she's got enough to do. I don't need to bother her. And then I think about that and think, actually, no, they're not going to mind. And as long as you encourage people to be honest, if they're not able to help you at that particular point of time, I think that's really important. That actually people like to be asked. We all like to be useful and to be helpful. And for me, that's just always something that crops up in my mind if I think I need to ask. And I hope that other people can think that too, that you're never a burden.
I am really optimistic actually about the direction of travel of Scottish agriculture in terms of mental health. There's a lot of signs that, so much good work is being done out there. We've got the young farmers with their Are You OK campaign and it's great to see so much happening at that age level, that sort of entry level into farming, and it augurs well for the future. The mental health first aid training that we've been doing, which has been fascinating right round the country. I'm going up to Shetland early in the new year. I was up in Orkney last New Year. And that's been just fabulous the way it's been received. We've now trained over 400 people working in the front line with farmers. So that ranges from quality assurance and, assessors to Scottish Government inspectors to vets, agronomists, bankers. We've trained the whole of the Scottish Virgin Banking Agri team and RBS and others, Bank of Scotland as well. So yeah, really excited about the potential of that and the cascade benefit to the industry of that. And what that teaches them is what to look out for. When they're engaging with a farmer or crofter, what to look out for, what might be worrying signs, and what to say and do if they do come across someone that's struggling. And really importantly, where to encourage them to seek further support so they do know what support is out there. And there's loads of really good support out there.
You are launching an app. Can you tell me about that? Because I've read a little bit about it and it sounds amazing.
So it's called the Thrive Wellbeing app, and it's an NHS approved app. And the really exciting, unusual thing about this app is that it has a live therapist function. So it's not a bot or anything. It's got a live therapist function. And we've been trialing the app in a pilot with the Young Farmers Association with bigger Aberfeldy and Bell Baxter clubs over the past year. And we know that it has been successful work with those clubs. And you can use it in a number of different ways. You can use it as simply as just to track your well-being day by day. And that can be as straightforward as extreme cloud to extreme sun. How are you feeling across different parameters? And if you track low, and this is something you can do when you're, I don't know, you've just got 5 minutes spare out in the farm or whatever you're up to. It doesn't need to be something you sit down and spend time on. It's a really quick process to track your well-being. But if you're tracking low in any particular of the well-being areas that are tracked, then a therapist will reach out to you. You can access that live therapist as well at any time if you feel, you would like that support. But equally, that therapist will reach out and say, look, I'm a little bit concerned, or, do you want to have a talk? So that's really exciting. I mean, you can use it for full-blown CBT. There's meditation videos. There's a whole heap of different content, advice and stuff to inspire you to eat well, to sleep well, to take exercise well. Lots of really good content on there. Or you can just use it at that more simple tracking your well-being level. And the exciting thing for us is that over that pilot period, the young farmers did enjoy using it. And we know that there were young farmers who had thoughts of suicide or self-harm, thoughts as well, who did benefit from the live therapist function. And so, that's real-time technology benefiting mental health. And of course, it's not the answer, but it's another tool in the armory for people who would like to benefit. So what we're doing now is that we're offering it to industry-wide to people of any age. You don't have to be a young farmer. You can be any age at all, retired farmer or anyone involved in Scottish agriculture. All they need to do is, if they jump on our website, they'll find a link to be able to fill in a short form, and you can then get sent a code.
So not the App Store at this stage. Go to the RSABI website because you need a code to be able to download it for free.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good tip to know. This may be a very unfair question, Carol, because it's tricky. But how do you think you will be able to encourage, shall I say, the slightly older generation who perhaps aren't as tech savvy to engage with this app?
I think it might be slightly more for the younger generation, but we do get a lot of surprises. You can, certainly don't presume that because people are a bit older that they...
Well, no, absolutely. I am sounding very ageist, and it is a generalization, but the non-tech savvy people rather than people who are necessarily older.
Yeah, no, well, I'm certainly not a very tech savvy at all, but, generally we find that people have neighbours or grandchildren or nephews or nieces that can help them get onto these things. And once they do, of course, then it's really simple and intuitive to use. It's just those first few steps. But yeah, I would say just ask someone. There's always someone, hopefully, that can give you a help just to get that over that first hurdle. And then you've got it on your phone and you're sorted.
Any final messages, Carol, for people listening, either for 2024 or just more generally, anybody who perhaps hasn't engaged with RSABI before in any capacity?
I suppose one group that we do struggle to reach sometimes is farm workers, actually, and we're here for everyone in Scottish agriculture, whatever that you do. I mean, I think we're here for retired farmers, but we are here for farm workers. We're here for everyone working or having worked in Scottish agriculture. And all I would say, I guess, is thank you to everyone who supports us, because we have no guaranteed income, really. So those that sign up to be part of our supporter scheme, where that's just so valuable to know that if you've signed up by direct debit, we've got that coming in. And yeah, just a massive thank you, because, we exist very much thanks to the kindness and generosity and support and enthusiasm of people in the Scottish agricultural community. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. So thank you, Carol. Just finally, before you go, could you give us the phone number of the helpline one more time and the website?
So it's 0808 1234 555, 0808 1234 555, and then it's www.rsabi.org.uk.
So thank you once again to Carol McLaren. I hope that having listened to Carol, you feel inspired to support RSABI in any way you can, whether that is the next time you do a sponsored activity, making them your chosen charity, or becoming a business supporter if you're in a position to do that, or even just getting in touch with your next door neighbour and making sure they're okay and referring them to RSABI if necessary. But thank you again to Carol. And as always, enormous thanks to our sponsor. This week it is Gillespie McAndrew, Scottish legal firm Gillespie McAndrew. So thank you again to them for their continued support of the OnFARM podcast. We would not be able to produce this podcast if it weren't for our amazing sponsors. So thank you to them. And if you are a Scottish business and you might be keen to sponsor the podcast, please do get in touch because we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we'll be back next week.